Welcome back to another episode of The Good, the Bad, and the Verdict. And today we're going to be taking a look at the Galaxy Watch 4 Classic. And I'll tell you, I'll be honest, my expectations were high for this watch when I heard about it and when I bought it, because this is one of the first watches with the new WearOS. This is Samsung working with Google to bring out the best in Android wearables, and I'm so excited for more competition because the Apple Watch is kind of sitting out on its own island there, and we need more competition, and I'm just excited. So let's get into the good. And starting off, this is just such a good looking watch. It's a handsome watch. It's classy yet understated, and everything about it just looks so good. I've kind of accepted the squareness of the Apple Watch, but just putting on a round watch again, it immediately was just like, this feels right. And it looks so good. It's definitely got a really nice look to it. It is thick, but that's kind of what you want with a premium watch, right? You want it to look a little thick. You want it to be noticeable, but not in, like, for me, it should be noticeable but not in your face. So I really love everything about this design. So another thing I saw people that were a little bit iffy about was battery life. So for me, it's been incredibly consistent. I've been able to get about 24 hours between cycles, and this includes having the always-on display enabled, sleep tracking, and doing workouts. So generally my workouts are between an hour to 90 minutes. So that's like 90 minutes of constantly tracking my heart rate and my movements and everything. And despite that, I'm getting 24 hours of full battery life. So that's pretty good. So if I turned off always on display, if I wasn't doing as long of a workout as I am, and if I wasn't sleep tracking, this thing could easily do, I think, 2 days without a sweat. I'm glad, watches should have better batteries than they do right now. The smartwatch is one of the biggest problems is battery, and with 24 hours with all those enabled, that's a very, very good performance in my opinion. Another thing I love about this watch is the rotating dial. So I've been a big fan of the digital crown on the Apple Watches just because they're so good and they make going through UI so much easier and honestly a lot more fun. And this does just that for the wearOS. It goes through wearOS so wonderfully. There are little clicks throughout when you rotate, and it just feels, it's nice. Now I do wish it was a tad bit smoother. Sometimes it can be a little bit choppy or not as smooth, but the more you use it, the smoother it keeps getting. So that's what I've noticed. I love the way that the dial is implemented, and I love it as a way to navigate through the UI. Another thing I'm really impressed by is all the health features this has. So this has ECG, blood oxygen levels, it has stress, it's got the sleep tracking suite, it's got so much going on in terms of health tracking. It pretty much hits all the major ones. I love it. It's got a lot of health tracking features. So if you're somebody who's willing, who wants to have an eye on all these things, this is fantastic. And the fact that Samsung is able to offer this watch in stainless steel, so the case is stainless steel, with a stainless steel case at $349 and $379 is beyond impressive. So $380 for this, for the 46 millimeter one, is honestly very impressive considering the hardware you get and the features it does have. So that's a lot of good going on for it, but we do have to talk about the bad. And honestly, I wish that, this was what I was hoping I wouldn't have to talk about, but I have to talk about it. It's the software. And let's start off and talk about the fact that this doesn't have Google Assistant at all. It's not that you can choose between it or Bixby is installed by default and you have to add Google Assistant. No, there is no such option as of now. Now, there has been an update that has been, I think, mentioned, or it hasn't been crystal clear, but there is an update that might bring Google Assistant to the watch in the future. But I've always been of the mindset that you kind of just look at the product as it is when it ships. So while it's shipping, it doesn't have Google Assistant. So I'm just going to assume that Google Assistant is a pipe dream and it's not going to happen for this watch. So, it just keeps my mindset a little bit clearer about the product. So I would recommend you guys do the same. Just imagine Google Assistant might not ever come to this watch, and that is a really unfortunate thing because Bixby just doesn't do things right. I'm so used to Google Assistant, and Google Assistant is so quick with the responses, and Bixby just isn't even close. It's slow. It's not as as good with the information, and I'm not a fan of it. Now, if you're already using Bixby and you have Bixby routines and all that set up, maybe this is the option you want to go for, but I personally prefer Google Assistant. So while the software has improved a lot, from the older days, it still is, there's so much Tizen in it still, and there's so many little software bugs and slowdowns and issues here and there that I've spotted, and there's just some weird choices made. It doesn't feel like it has that, it doesn't feel like somebody went through it all over again just to make sure they got all the things right. It definitely feels like it's not a harmonious experience sometimes. And one of the best examples I can give you is when I set up this watch. I set up my phone, I set up the watch, and then I started downloading apps onto my phone to, transfer all my data over and all that stuff. So when I did that, I installed WhatsApp, Discord, all the apps that send you notifications a lot. And I started noticing I wasn't getting notifications for any of them on my watch. I was getting notifications for calls and messages, direct text messages, but nothing more. And that confused me. So I went in and looked into the settings, and there's this really weird feature, but setting turned on where don't allow new apps to send notifications. Now, that was such a weird thing. They're like, why would you do that? That makes zero sense. Like, why not have it turned off and let me turn it on if I want to? Why was it turned on by default? It's small things like that just really, it kind of makes the experience not as nice as it should be. It's a small thing, it's something that very easily could be fixed in a software update, but this was my experience, and even if they fixed it now, I don't know, because I already set up the watch, so I don't know if it's going to do it again, but that was just my experience, and it just kind of gave me a little glimpse into like some of the software shortcomings it had. Another big one that I noticed and was extremely frustrating was the workouts menu. So there is, a menu in the watch where you can choose your workout. So on the main page, there are only 12 workouts you can have. And any more workouts you want, what you have to do is you have to remove one of those 12, add it, and then if you want that back, you have to delete one and bring it back. Like, you can't have more than 12 workouts on the on the watch here, and it's so frustrating because I do a lot of different types of, activities and workouts. So to have a limitation of this is just so frustrating. And the way I figured it out was very frustrating too. So what happened was I was doing a dance class, and I was like, okay, let me just turn on the watch and see, how much calories I burn and all that stuff. And what happened was I couldn't find it, first of all. I couldn't find dance in the workout menu. So then I looked, and it was like, add more from phone. So I'm like, all right, let me go grab my phone. So I went and grabbed my phone, because while I was working out, I didn't have my phone on me. Personally, I set it to the side. So I went, grabbed my phone, and I went in, I opened it up, I went to that menu, and then I saw dance as an option. So I clicked on it, and it said, done, that's it. There was nothing else to do there. After doing that, I check my watch, and I don't see dance anywhere, and it was just confusing me. And by that time, class was already starting, so I was just like, never mind, let me just deal with it later. And it took me a while, but I finally figured out that there was that limitation of only having 12 workouts. So the minute I deleted one of those 12, then dance immediately showed up, and it was just so frustrating. It's like, why would you do that? Why would you have a limitation like that? Why not just allow me to have as many workouts as I want right there? And it makes no sense to me. It's just, there's that these software decisions, some of them, they're nothing short of frustrating. But again, this is something that can very easily be fixed with a software update. It's just, I don't trust them to do it. So I'm going to take it as it is, but it is what it is. So moving on, let me talk about something that isn't a disadvantage to this watch, but a disadvantage in general, and that is that this UI is very clearly made to have a rotating ring or a bezel or something that you can turn, because a lot of elements in this are just really relying on that. And if you get a watch without this, it's not going to be as good of an experience. And that was the same exact complaint I had. If you go back and watch my Galaxy Watch Active 2 video I made like 2 years ago, I said the same thing. I said this watch was clearly designed with a bezel type navigational input in mind. It wasn't made to be touch only. And it's so frustrating to see that that is still the case till date, even with the new wearOS. It was just, that was something I was really hoping they'd fix, because the biggest issue I'm having here is that there are a lot of watches. Just Samsung's own Watch 4, this is the Watch 4 Classic, the step down, the Watch 4 does not have a bezel that rotates, so you're going to have to do all your navigation through the touchscreen alone. And when it's just so much unnecessary swiping. It doesn't feel natural, it doesn't feel comfortable. It clearly feels like it was a shortcoming here. And that, while this one is immune from it because it has that bezel, if you're going to buy the Watch 4 and you're watching this video, don't buy the Watch 4. Just go to the Watch 4 Classic, because that navigational nightmare of the layout of the software is just a navigational nightmare unless you have that bezel I was talking about. So, that's a lot of nitpicking on the software. But yeah, there are, some missing things here, which is why I'm going over it in detail. Moving on, let me talk a little bit about a few hardware things I noticed. Number one, the charger is wireless and it's magnetic, kind of like the Apple Watch is, but the charger itself does not have a strong magnetic connection. So what happens is I will literally try to connect it, and I'll connect it and I'll try to put it down on my desk, and it'll disconnect by the time I try to put it down on my desk because the connection is so weak. It's pretty much like a normal wireless charger, but there's this really, really weak little magnet that tries to hold on, but it can't. So it's weird. Why didn't they just make the magnet stronger? It's so frustrating to have that connection be so loose. And I can 100% see people thinking they put it on charge, but it actually didn't connect and it's not charging. It's just something that could have been very easily fixed if somebody tested this thing for more than like 2 or 3 days and was like, oh crap, why is the charger so loose? There's some things like that make no sense to me. Another thing I noticed was just the haptics. The vibration on this watch aren't that great. They're a little bit too aggressive or they're a little bit too faint. Like, there was no good middle ground. And like, I just, I feel so spoiled with Apple's haptics now, especially the Apple Watch. And I know I keep bringing the Apple Watch back up, but that is my point of reference here, which is why I'm just so frustrated by the haptics here. It doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel polished. There's just something missing. And I just wish that the Samsung would have paid a little bit more attention to the haptics on this, because it really does make or break that experience. Because when you get a notification, the Apple Watch, it almost feels like somebody's just gently tapping you to let you know you've got a notification. On this, it just feels like your hand is being like, there's just this really harsh vibration. I just can't explain it. I really wish that would have been improved, and I'm hoping that in the future it is. And finally, one other thing that I didn't realize, but I looked into and learned recently, is that you cannot use the ECG function on this watch unless you have a Samsung phone. And that's so stupid. Why would Samsung do that? It's just let me download the app on any Android phone and let me use it. Why are you kind of limiting these features just because I'm not using a Samsung phone? That feels very Apple-esque to me, like locking down just because you don't have my hardware. I don't get it. Like, it really is such a frustrating thing, and it makes me think, what else might Samsung do in the future, which is like, oh no, unless you have a Samsung phone, you're not going to get access to this feature. It's just frustrating. So let's talk about the verdict. The verdict here, this is a hard one. I'm really trying to think this through, and what irritates me is this is such a good product, but it's just marred by some of these. It's just not a very good software experience yet. Like, it's good, but it's not perfect. There's still things that are missing. There's still things that need to be fixed, and it's just so annoying to see that, because at the price point it's at, it pretty much has no competition. Like, it's the best Android wearable you can get right now for this price. But that's not saying a lot, because there isn't that much competition in the Android smartwatch world. Like, there are, Garmin watches and Fossil watches and this and that, but this is the one that is like the one of the best ones. Like, this has a lot more hardware, this has a lot more software integration than those, and even this is such just like a step back. So it really is so difficult to talk about this, and I was just hoping, for a revolutionary jump, I think. So it might be a little bit on me to have my expectations too high, but when they promised a new version of WearOS and they were working with Google, I really was hoping this was the resurgence of the Android smartwear technology, and Android just paying a lot more focus to their wearable segment, because it's so vitally lacking. But it's a minor evolution at best. It's definitely not a revolution yet. But I do have to say this, it's definitely headed in the right direction. You know, they've got the path on the right, you know, the train is on the right track. They just got to get it to that destination, you know, and it might take a little bit more time, but they got to put in more effort. You know, they can't just half-ass this. They really need to get going, and they really need to compare it step by step to the Apple Watch, because that's the gold standard for a wearable right now. And there's just so many things they can straight up copy off of that, and their platform would just be better for it. So the verdict here is, if you have a Samsung smartphone, this is a good buy. But if you don't have a Samsung smartphone, I would say that you might want to hold off. You know, look for more options, or just wait till more options come out. And I'm sure that the wearOS is going to keep getting better. So unless you're in a rush to buy a smartwatch, I'd say wait, hold on, and see what else you get. But this might not be the perfect option yet. So that's it for this one, guys. This has been an interesting test to do. This has just been, there's so much going on. So let me know what you guys think of the Watch 4 Classic. And if you have an Android smartwatch, let me know what you think of it. You know, do you have problems with it? Do you kind of feel that it's lacking in any way? Are you planning on buying another one, or are you going to hold off? You know, I want to know what you guys are thinking and doing, because I'm kind of lost. Like, I don't know a lot of people who wear Android smartwatches, and I really want to have a conversation about that. So go ahead and leave your comments down in the comments below. And if you want to check out this watch or any of the other watches that I mentioned, be sure to check those out. I'll have them linked down in the description. And be sure to follow me on social media as well. I'll have all the handles right here on the screen, and of course, linked down in the description as well. Go check me out over there. And if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe for more Samsung content. That's it for this one, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you in the next one.